So last week was full of announcements and blogs from Google Cloud side, and this is one of them that caught my attention. And here they're talking about the sort of new features and expansions to their Vertex AI Agent Builder. So Vertex AI Agent Builder is effectively the Google Cloud stack for building agents and agentic systems, and they announced a bunch of new things. What I want to sort of point out here is, this is the Vertex AI Agent Builder stack, and what it would point out here is at the sort of core foundational piece of the stack is the ability to build these custom agents, and at the heart of that is Google's Agent Development Kit, which you may or may not have heard about at this point. It's mostly referred to as ADK for short, but effectively it's Google's flagship agentic AI framework for building these agent systems, and it's Google have been pushing this really hard across their agent builder and Google Cloud ecosystem, with the sort of promise that it makes building these agents and complex systems a lot easier, makes sort of building it for production, enterprise readiness, thinking about scale, governance, etc. So it's really a full agentic stack that Google are offering, sort of centered around Agent Development Kit as a framework for building these agents. And so I thought for today I wanted to start just showing what it looks like to get started with Agent Development Kit. How difficult or easy is it to actually just get your first up and running agent, what are the different moving parts involved, etc. Link to this though was another really awesome announcement by Google last week, and that is that ADK now has an SDK for Go. So previously it was just for Python and Java, but now they've released a SDK for Go, which opens up all new avenue for Go developers to be able to also build these powerful systems leveraging Go. And so this really caught my attention. I spent a lot of time writing software in Go. Out of the box, you've got things like concurrency and type safety, etc. So it's a really awesome language to be able to build these agentic systems in. And so just going to the official Go page here. So this is the project page for Agent Development Kit, and they've got a couple of sort of get started paths. And now, given that they've released the Go SDK, there's now a bit of a pathway for Go as a programming language. And so for today, I was just thinking I'm gonna walk through the getting started, kind of explain the different moving pieces as I mentioned, and just get a feel for what it looks like. So let's move over to the IDE. So I've just set up for now just a very simple project. I've just got an agent.go file there. It's currently empty. Got my go.mod set up just for the package management, etc. And yeah, I'm just gonna walk through this and see how we go. So I'm just gonna grab some of this. Just some missing packages, so I'm just going to run this and get everything installed, and that should resolve soon. Great. Okay, so just to walk through this quickly. So you're starting off with a model. So your model is effectively your configuration for connecting to a large language model. So if you're working with Google models like Gemini, you would link up to Gemini, and in this particular case it's got Gemini Flash as a model. You could be using Pro if you want a more powerful model, etc., and then just configuring some connection to it. So if you've got a an API key to the model, then you would put your API key in here. Having looked at the documentation a little bit, and with Go, the nice thing about Go is you almost don't even need to, because you can kind of see now exactly what's expected. I'm not going to be using an API key. Instead, I'm going to be using the actual Vertex AI as a backend. I've got a Google Cloud project set up with all the correct APIs enabled, etc. on my project, and so I'm just going to be using that for effectively authenticating and being able to use the model. And so what I'm needing now is just a project. So I just want to grab my project. So this is the AI Roundtable project that we're using, and I'm just gonna use the Europe West 1 endpoint. So at this point, we've effectively established, okay, we're going to be using a large language model. Google Vertex AI is going to be the provider of that large language model. We're going to be using Gemini Flash, and this is going to be running through the project and location that we've specified. So that's just the sort of model spec. Like what is the model that we actually want backing our agent? And then the next couple of lines here is where we now actually configure our agent. So they've got this large language LM agent, large language model agent, where you can create a new agent here, and then you need to populate a couple of things around this agent. So things like giving it a name, and then pointing to the actual model. So a model and an agent are two separate things. An agent has a model at its heart, and using that as the reasoning engine and the sort of entity that reasons about and triggers tools being called, etc., etc. So an agent is not a model, but an agent requires a model. So you pass in the model that you set up, and then we give the agent a description. So this would be useful, if you have another agent potentially looking at this agent and wanting to use it, then having a description around this is obviously potentially useful. And then our instructions to the agent. So you can think about this as almost your prompt, your sort of system instructions, your agent. Like, what is your persona? Who are you? What can you do? This is obviously quite a simple version, but it gives you an idea. So you're a helpful assistant that tells current time in a city. So that's just a bit of instruction. And then where things start get interesting is when you register tools on your agent. So tools are the ability to give your agent sort of autonomy and the ability to take action. And ADK, just moving back to the documentation here, if you look at tools, there's a couple of categories of them that exist. There's these built-in tools. So if you look at some of the built-in tools, you've got sort of Google search, code execution, etc. Sort of Vertex AI, RAG, that kind of thing, which is obviously a little bit more advanced use cases. But this Google search one is what we are actually interested in here at the moment, and it's pretty much a pre-built tool that is shipped with the framework and allows very easy access for your agent to have the ability to query and do a Google search for the user. So that's just a very simple built-in tool integration set up as a tool, and then that's pretty much the agent set up. This down here is just basically sort of giving a runtime for the agent and the ability to launch the agent with ADK. So if we just go back to the QuickStart, so they've got the code there. If you see, so we need the ability to run the agent. And ADK as a framework provides these different interfaces or way in which we can engage with our agent. So this launcher effectively provides those different mechanisms, and it's super helpful if we're just running this agent just as a single script. So you can see we can run your agent with an ADK web interface. So the ADK framework ships with a web interface that we can very easily use. So we can actually just grab that. Well, yeah, there's a couple. I mean, let's maybe try the command line. So we can. So if you just run it like this, it defaults to just a command line interface. And so here we actually now interacting with our agent. So hello, how are you? And then our agent responds. And then given that we've given this a Google search tool, we can now ask it to do something. And because we've set this agent to help us tell the time, let's say, what is the current time in London? And that is spot on. I'm currently in London and it's pretty much 10:45 a.m. on the dot. So the agent would otherwise obviously not have been able to know what the current time in London is. So it has been able to go and reach out to Google search, which I as a human being would have done in any case. If I wanted to know something from Google search, I would go and type it in and go and get my results. And that's what the agent has done. In this case, it doesn't have a clock. It's got the ability to go do a Google search. And so it's reached out to the internet, received the time and sort of data information back, and sent that back to the large language model, i.e. our model, and then given a response. So that's kind of just a quick, nice way of interacting with your agent. The other one that we were going to do is the web UI. So there's another, you can run the same script but providing a web UI, and then you have more of like a user interface for how you can interact with this agent. So if we just go to, they've given us the host URL for this, and great, so it's picked up our hello time agent because we're running it in the correct directory. And now we can do the same thing. So hello, how are you? And there the agent has responded. So it's pretty much the equivalent of what we would have seen, what we're seeing in the terminal console. Now we've got a nice bit of a UI to see what's happening. And on top of that, the events that are sort of being triggered in the background through this agent are also being captured, so we can actually see what's actually happening. Here's the first event. There was a request. We asked it, hello, how are you? So this was a request that went to the agent, and then the agent gave us a response. So you can see the different sort of event pieces that are happening sort of back and forth between the user and the agent. And then we can ask what is the current time in London, and we'll send that through to our agent, and we should be expecting some new events now. So there's a new interaction has happened. Again, we've now got the time. Again, this is right. It's a couple of minutes later now, and the agent has now reached out again to Google search and to retrieve the right information. So this is spot on. And it even shows you, how has the agent rather retrieved that information. You can see there's these annotations here showing that it's come from a Google search. And if we look here at the next event, we can see the request. We're still in the first event. So if we look at the second event now, going to the request, you can see now the request that's gone into the model is now just not just, what is the current time in London, but because we have built up now a conversational history, the parts that are going into the model at this point are now, our full conversational history up until this point. So you can see the hello, how are you, and then the response that the agent gave to us previously, and then our current question, what is the current time in London? So this is the sort of the full input or request that went into model, and we can see some information. This is a system instruction we set, and we've got a Google search tool as part of the request. So it's pretty nice for kind of visibility into what's actually happening with our agent. And then if we just inspect the response, so this is actually the content that the agent came back to us with. So the actual content, so this is what we see displayed here. But behind the scenes, there was a couple of, through the Google search tool, there were a couple of sort of grounding bits of information that it went and retrieved from the internet. So it did some searches behind the scenes on our behalf, grabbed a couple of websites and things that it visited, time and date, etc., to try and get that information. And so this is just a bit of visibility into what the model retrieved from that Google search tool, and then from that was able to synthesize this response and to answer our question. So this is a pretty cool way of just inspecting your agent, understanding what's number one happening with these different engagements, and also be able to see that in a nice UI.